Kia ora koutou, ko Sarah Wiki Bennett tuku ingoa, no te ao Pauri aho. For those of you who don't know, it's in the far north, and those of us from the far north, we always tell you it's in the far north, so it's not a problem not knowing. Ngā mihi nui to the faculty for putting this on today and for inviting me. Also to our guests, David, Lucy and Sue. Sue, just a big mihi to you. Thank you for using our language. Our language is for everyone, so please use it. Don't be shy. Just grow in confidence. There you go. There's my little plug for the day. We're ahead of time, so are we? Yes. So I'll talk slowly. Ka pai. So I've been asked to give a really quick talk, but now that I can talk a little bit slower, I shall do that for you. Today's really about Mātauranga Māori in health, and that is a frightening concept for many of you in the research space, and I understand that and I acknowledge that for you, but that's why you have people like myself in this role, so hopefully I can shed a little bit more light on that for you. We have Karira also in our graduate school as well, who has a similar role to myself, so please be aware of that, and our role essentially is around that Māori engagement impact for our Māori communities through research. So, ngā mihi everyone. Let's see. So I was asked to give a really quick presentation on Māori and particularly honouring Mātauranga Māori in health research. Quick presentation to me, said no one ever, but that's okay. I have kept it to 3 slides, so I made sure they were really pretty slides because I'll just chit-chatter away and at least you've got something nice to look at. Right, let's cut to it. Māori constantly experience worse outcomes than other New Zealanders across all health metrics. We're very caring and sharing, and we make sure that our Pasifika whānau also have those pretty disparaging statistics. I actually did have a slide of charts, but it's, you know, charts on a presentation. It's never engaging, and I guarantee there's always someone in the room with way more expertise than I do, and they could probably call me out on those charts, so never put a chart up. Life expectancy gap. Māori live about 7 years less than non-Māori. Our Pasifika whānau, 4 to 5. These statistics that have been gathered are potentially, they talk about it as potentially avoidable. But don't worry, we're also pretty much 5 times higher than non-Māori for rheumatic heart disease, 3 times more for cardiovascular hospitalisation. Diabetes, not great either. Cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, asthma. So it's pretty dire reading, and for those of you in this research space, it's something you just can't actually ignore. And even like I was listening to Sue talking, and it's really interesting how she talks about that Western viewpoint and that Western lens of viewing the world. And I guess Mātauranga Māori is really not so much about the different knowledges that we've brought through from our own tūpuna, and every Indigenous culture has some. It's really about seeing the world from a different viewpoint and a different standing point. So when you're thinking about how do I engage with Māori, you're thinking about how do I think differently? How do I reframe this differently? And it's not about Māori being different from us, it's about how do I embed in my research a different way of looking at something? Because maybe I might come to a different outcome than what I had imagined I would. Started out funny, kind of went a bit downhill from there, didn't I? Sorry about that. So, We can't keep taking this deficit approach. You know, the stats are dire, but we can't keep looking at the stats as a reason to, it's really hard, where do you start, what am I going to do? We have to start looking at things with a less deficit approach to start from, but really, let's look about the opportunities. What's unique about some of the situations that you find yourself? What's unique about the skills that you bring to the core of your work? And once you get into that nitty-gritty of who you are and what you can bring, you're actually quite useful for Māori. Trust me on that one. So, really, we all know these. These are not new. These are about, I've got 3 across the top. But if we even take away, because in this political climate, ladies and gentlemen, in this political climate, we don't often like to use the word te tiriti. However, if we just look at the 3 Ps for starters, partnership, protection, participation, if we think about underpinning that with equity, addressing systematic barriers in our health system. So these are what I call the 4 food groups, really. Partnership, protection, participation and equity. Forget one and you're feeling a little bit how do you say that word? Come on. Oh. Never attempt difficult words in a room full of experts, she says. I think it's really important to think about the ways in which we serve our research, and thinking about right at the beginning, how do we consider the groups that we're going to be serving for the research. So very often we're so passionate about what we do and how we do it, and we've got to get runs on the board. I know there's many of you in the room who are starting out your research career, and it's really tricky to try and get those runs on the board. How do you get noticed? How do you do something differently? Well, actually, it starts with you. It starts with you, the individual, and it starts with you understanding that partnership with Māori and the need for it to be Māori-led, that protection, the safeguarding, aligning with Māori, having their priorities heard, and not just as a funding mechanism to be funded, co-developing those questions, thinking about ways in which you can address some of those systemic barriers. You will know what they are. Some of them you've lived them. Some of them you've had whānau who've lived them. You know, and I talk about those statistics at the beginning. Well, actually, they're not just statistics, are they? They're actually people. And they're our family, they're your family, they're people we know, people who we've been touched on, communities who have to live in that's their everyday. So if we continue to focus on that, as what are those reasons? Look, I'm just going to move into that third slide, putting into practice. Putting into practice is probably one of those difficult things because we can become so frazzled by the overwhelming idea. But you know what they say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's pretty much what it is for putting it into practice. You don't have to do everything well, you just have to start. No one's expecting you to have the best community engagement and have the best Māori group represented on board and the best Māori leaders. That sort of thing takes time. And one of those things is the early engagement. The sooner you engage with our communities, the sooner you are able to build those relationships. And we all know relationships are at the heart of anything we do in health. So building those relationships are really crucial and they take time. Please don't come to me and ask me to help you with building a relationship because you've got a funding proposal due next week. Because you'll get I used to be a primary school principal for a few years, and you'll get that look. Yeah. Co-develop those questions. thinking about ways in which you are useful. What are my skills? What do I bring to the table? How can I help you? What are those impacts that I can have for you? And if you don't know, that's my job to know. I'm really, really good, and those of you in the room who have worked with me, I'm really good at figuring out how your research on how your skill set can help Māori. So please make an appointment. Come on in and see me. Stop me in the street. I'm up for it. Applying Māori methodologies. So this is a really tough one, and I'm really quite strict on the fact that if you're going to go into a kaupapa Māori developed research, make sure it's led by Māori, because it's one of those Indigenous approaches that you want those people whose actual knowledge system it is, you want them to be leading that piece. You want them to be developing those skills in you, building those capabilities, but also bringing back that reciprocity. Measure what matters to Māori, so holistic measures. Not just blood sugar levels, but whānau confidence, cultural connections, self-determinations. Those are our measures. So think about the ways in which your measures will look towards the end of any project. Return those findings. Do you know, so often through hui, wānanga, reo Māori resources, don't just publish and then ghost the community. Make sure those findings go back to the people who they affect the most. You know, think about the way in which your work will be disseminated. But think about it at the beginning, not at the end. Because when you've got all those planning pieces, this is the teacher and me again, when you've got all those planning pieces coming together, you've got a better project. And when you come into the Office of Research and Innovation, where I'm based and where we've got a spectacular team, when you come in with that overarching thinking, then it literally is our job to pull all those ties together for you, to help you knit and weave those stories for you so that you've got these really robust projects. And you know, I know we've got a really big drive with our current government about having, with our research, having economic outcomes. And I did read something quite, oh here we go, economic cost. Addressing health inequities could save over New Zealand dollars 800 million annually, illustrating both moral and fiscal imperatives to act. I didn't want to finish on that note, that was a bit dire, wasn't it? So, key messages, I'm sure I've got them. Mātauranga Māori, it's not an add-on. And don't be scared about the word, because it's used in many contexts. When I think about Mātauranga Māori, I think about bringing a Māori lens to your work, impacting Māori communities so that we can put our view and spin on the work that you do. I guess quick wrap up, the why. Remember, the disparities are real, but you've got to flip your thinking. You've got to flip your thinking about how your outcomes are going to, what can I bring to the table? Flip that mindset. The principles, partnership, protection, participation, equity. Okay, you can't do any of those things without creating equity. The practice, what that looks like in the real research. So my takeaway message is, Mātauranga Māori in health research isn't a side dish, it's the main course. But here's the exciting bit. We're the only country in the world that can truly do this properly for Māori. And that's both a privilege and a responsibility. That was a bit hard-hitting for the last line. Ngā mihi nui ki a koutou. Thank you.